Hi gang, Mrs. Reddy again. Here we go with a very short introduction to the judicial branch, or what we would call the federal court system. First of all, the judicial branch is established in the Constitution in Article 3. The Constitution specifically provided there would be a Supreme Court, but left it to Congress to create the lower courts. A term you need to know is jurisdiction, and that means that it's the authority of the federal courts to hear cases involving federal law. Another way of explaining jurisdiction is that it's a court's authority to hear a case. In other words, if you get a traffic ticket in Saxe, you're in the Saxe court's jurisdiction. And that's what that means. Original jurisdiction just means the court that hears the case first. There's always an order you go in when you go to the courts. So you begin in a federal case in district courts, federal district courts. And they have original jurisdiction, meaning they hear the case first. The Supreme Court hears cases first only if it involves representatives of a foreign nation or certain cases where a state is a party. So just remember, original means first. Then we have appellate jurisdiction, and this means the courts are hearing appeals of decisions that the lower courts made. So in the federal system, you have courts of appeals, and then you have the Supreme Court. So you start out in the district court, you could appeal to the courts of appeals, and if you still don't like the decision, you can appeal to the Supreme Court. Concurrent jurisdiction just allows certain types of cases to be tried in both federal and state courts. And this cartoon says, example, disputes between people from different states can choose a state or federal court. If the amount of money the dispute is over $75,000. Exclusive jurisdiction just means cases can be heard only in certain courts. Now, we have a dual court system, and this means that we have state courts and we have federal courts, because we have a system of federalism in our country where we have state governments and we have the federal government. State courts are in every state, each of the 50 states, and over 97% of all criminal cases are heard in state and local courts. Federal courts of course, is for the entire country, and there are district courts. This is the order that you go through. They have the original jurisdiction. Then you go to courts of appeals if you want to appeal the district court's decision, and then to the Supreme Court. District courts are trial courts. You're going to have a jury. You're going to have a trial. That's the only court in the federal system where you will have a trial. The courts of appeals and Supreme Court are different. In the Constitution, the Supreme Court is the only court specifically mentioned. Congress was given the power to create all the other federal courts. All right, the Judiciary Act of 1789 is important for you to know about. This established the basic three-tiered structure of federal courts. Remember, the act was passed by Congress. Congress was given the power to establish these courts, so they established them with this act. And it also, at that time, set the size of the Supreme Court at 6 justices, which later expanded to 9, which is what we have today. All right, back to district courts. There are courts of original jurisdiction. They are trial courts. There are currently 94 district courts, and these are federal courts. District courts handle about 80% of the federal caseload. Most cases end in a plea bargain. The next stage, courts of appeals. They do not have original jurisdiction. They hear cases after they've been heard first in the district courts. Sorry, my throat is dry. Also, they are called appellate courts. And the word appellate comes from the word appeals. Hi, Teresa.
I think I've had
Oh, you did. It's right there. Right there. You're welcome. Okay, gang, if you listen to this, I might put a question on the Socratic quiz of who did I talk to during this PowerPoint? Teresa. Okay, bye. Anyway, they're also called appellate courts, so you hear the word appellate coming from the word appeals, and they review the decision and the relevant information that the district court decided. They don't hear trials or hear testimony, just judges look over the facts of the case. Supreme Court is the last court you can go to. It is the court of last resort. It's the high court. It is the supreme law of the land. They review cases from the Court of Appeals. They have many, many thousands of requests every year. They only hear maybe 100 cases every year. Supreme Court decisions establish precedent. They establish the groundwork for how cases like that will be handled in the future. All right, we're going to stop here at Marbury versus Madison. We will cover that in class. I've got a video to show you, but just know that, go ahead and write this down. It established judicial review, as you know, and judicial review is the power of the Supreme Court to declare federal legislation, federal laws unconstitutional if they violate the Constitution. All right, thanks for listening. We will talk more tomorrow.